Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. This episode is sponsored by Rimmel Greenhouse Systems, makers of quality greenhouse structures. Whether you're just getting started or buying your 10th tunnel, Rimmel has a structure to fit your needs. I've purchased and grown in Rimmel houses and would recommend them to everyone. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. And today my guest is Brian Thomas with MYCA Farms. They're a gourmet mushroom grower in British Columbia. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you very much, Michael.
And you were saying just before we got on that actually the pronunciation of the name of your farm is a little bit debated. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I love mycology. I love mycelium. So we were looking at breaking down the name, and this was kind of my own doing. I talked to a mentor of mine about, what was I going to name this business and stuff. And he said, it's always good to keep it into an abbreviation or a small thing. So I looked up a few different names, and there were some trademark names and other names that were already owned by other people. So I came up with MYCA, MYCA, short for mycelios, which is Spanish for mycelium. And then my partner that came on board about a year after I was doing my beta testing and breaking stuff and, contaminating the universe, growing mushrooms, learning how to do this, he called it MYCA. He's like, what's the name? MYCA Farms? MYCA? So we get customers that come up and say MYCA, but then we had some customers from out of town that said MYCA, right? And they're Spanish, so
yeah.
It's kind of turning into this little debate, and I'm kind of curious, are we going to rename this farm and our brand name? But for now, it's kind of MYCA Farms or MYCA Farms, and we're looking at getting into the food space and the dried mushrooms soon anyway. So it'll be what it is. The customer wants to call it now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, talk to us. How did you get started?
Well, I was it's interesting. I've always had a real passion for permaculture, and I bought a book years ago called The Market Gardener with Jean Martin. And I always had this dream of living off the land of growing beautiful, delicious food. And I grew up in Ladner, British Columbia, Tsawwassen, British Columbia. It's like on the west coast of British Columbia, and there's a lot of great farms there, like West of Island Herb Farms. And every year I just, as a kid, going to those going to these farms and just how delicious everything was. And then my grandma on Vancouver Island, she's still alive. She's 97. And, she was growing her own food up to, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And so I've had this one side of my family that was all farm to table. The potatoes just tasted exquisite. Everything was grown locally. Fish caught out in, Victoria there. And then on the other side of the family, God bless my family, but they were like, everything was out of a can. And, there's all these different, it was like kind of post World War II, my grandma and grandpa at that point. On my dad's side, they 2 tablespoons to make a pot of coffee. And then it was, Christmas dinner was, can this, can that. And then on the other side of my family was farm to table and everything they grew. And so I've always just in the back of my mind, just loved it. And I ended up, having quite the story of my life, and ended up, becoming a mental health addictions therapist working for the government and youth programs. And I firmly believe going to, when I went to college and became a counselor and worked with addicts and recovering alcoholics and mental health clients, that food was medicine. I realized how much food is medicine. And I've always wanted in the back of my mind to just become to grow food and do it locally and teach kids and incorporate it. So what ended up happening is I became part of a nonprofit farm society while I was working full-time as a single father with 3 kids. I had no way. I had to do the government job, right? I had to take it. I went to school, got my shingle, was a government employee. And, I worked my ass off, doing, after work, I'd go volunteer on a farm and I'd, check it all out. And then, I was doing torch on roofing too, to support my kids. Right. But, I always just loved the farm vibe. And, I got involved in one, and sadly, we learned the hard way, like, whoever's name you put on the lease, really got to make sure that person's a good person. And I organized volunteers to show up, and this guy was not really copacetic to it and kind of chased everybody away, and then played the, like, my name's on this lease and get lost. And I had a good friend of mine, a doctor that I worked with, a colleague, where we got kind of ousted out of the nonprofit, and the guy just kind of hoarded it and started shacking people up on the farm. And it was really sad. So I had a bad experience. I was like thousands of hours out, a few $1,000s out of my pocket. And there I was with no farm. Right. So I put that back on the back burner, worked with mental health and addictions. And then fentanyl came out in British Columbia and started killing all my clients. So I was just getting burnt right out, and I decided to go work on the tugboats. So getting on the tugs, it was a great job. Loved it on the water, but then I broke my wrist. So it was like kind of the perfect storm, Mike. It was like, I'm sitting there going, what now? I got to reinvent myself. So I started watching YouTube videos, and I was following Curtis Stone online, like, turn your yard into a profitable farm, right? Microgreens. And so I started really diving down the rabbit hole, and I was going to do a microgreens. I was going to start an urban farm, microgreens. And then when I was watching these videos, I saw a mushroom farm on YouTube being interviewed by Curtis Stone, and it was Brian Callow from Summerland. They have a mushroom farm called What the Fungus. And I was it, man. I got bit by the bug. Like, up until 2 years ago, man, I had no idea that you could grow gourmet mushrooms out of a bag, and how thorough they were, and how tasty and crunchy they were. And so I was hooked, and that was it, bro. And I went there. I paid for his training package. I lived in a fifth wheel. I learned how to do it, came home and started breaking shit and spending money.
Okay. Well, and hopefully the breaking stuff and spending money actually worked.
Yeah, it did, man. So, the first year, like, what I've learned, and if anyone was ever considering getting into urban farming or starting a small farm business, is I just sort of had to make, if I could hindsight, it would have been equipment and who's installing it. Like, I got a few heartbreaking moments, putting in a boiler, and we bought a used boiler, but it wasn't that, it was a great boiler. And we built this really big container to cook our substrates, and the boiler broke and wasn't properly winterized. So, we went through about $20,000 worth of equipment until we figured it out. Right. So, hindsight being that, but, now I limped through my first couple of years, and now we're in a 5,000 square foot barn. We've epoxied the floors. We've built all of our rooms. We really know what we're doing. And today we're harvested about, I think, 300 pounds out of our first room. And now it's just starting, the volume's coming, man. I did my first farmer's market in August. And our first farmer's market ever was at Fort Langley Farmer's Market. And we just, like I said, we've been limping our little crops in there and getting to know the population, and a really great reception from the community. And I think the coolest thing, man, is that I've met now 3 people that all have little permaculture farms. So it's just been a great welcoming into the community in Fort Langley and around the area with other farmers. Right. Yeah. So that's where we're at.
So talk to us a little bit about how you guys do the mushroom process. And I think a lot of people do it pretty similar, but I'm sure there's a few things differently that you do.
Yeah, you bet, man. So what we're doing here is we're using a Kennewick hardwood pellet. There's only one distributor in, like, literally Canada that does have it. It's through the Canadian Tire stores. And so we decided we were just going to go with the pellet because it's nice and clean, and pellet's really nice. And then we're using a soya husk that I buy from the local feed shop. So our mushrooms are just simply soy husk. Sometimes we've used some soy meal, which is a good boost for the mushrooms as well. But soy husk, soy meal, hardwood pellets, and then we use oats for our grain spine. And that's it. Those are the ingredients.
So talk to us a little bit about what the hardwood pellets provide, and then what does the soya provide?
Well, the soy is going to provide, definitely, like, all of our strains that we grow are a wood-based mushroom. They don't, you can get oysters that'll grow on straw, and they will use some of the manure, but we've chosen just strictly stick to the one recipe with the master's mix. And so they're going to provide just different nutrients. The bulk of the nutrients coming from the the wood. The oats are actually one of the main protein sources for the mycelium when you first start your mushroom. Then you have to, after that's fully colonized in the oats, you're going to put about a quarter cup of oats to 2.5 pounds of wood and about 2.5 pounds of soy husk. Now the soy husk is a plant matter, and it's a nice protein for the mushroom to eat, as well as the wood's going to give the mycelium another little bit more nutrients. But because we do have more of a cooked, all the pellets that we do get have been pasteurized already, so the mushrooms will be, relying mostly on the soy meal and the oats for their nutrition to build a really healthy fungi, a mycelium body. So like the fungi body, it really requires that. And the wood's really good for the structure, but I do use the lion's mane strictly with a little bit of oats, but mainly hardwood. So the mushrooms, in nature, it can take a lot of time. Like if you grow in the logs, that's why they always tell you soak your logs, soak your logs for a long time to soften up that wood. So we're kind of cheating with our hardwood. We're mulching it up. We're making it really nice and malleable, so the mycelium can travel through it really fast and eat the proteins and the waste product really, really easily, right?
So, okay, so you started the business. You've spent a lot of money on getting things figured out. You started the farmers market, and you said August. Talk to us through, like, what have you learned in your last couple months of being at markets?
Well, so we came in to our first market. It was kind of a random fluke. We had about 50 pounds of mushrooms, and I found around, and there was a lot of guys in the Lower Mainland that have already got markets, mushrooms at the farmers market. But we found one pretty quick, and it happens to be right down the street from our farm. So we do a Saturday farmers market in Fort Langley. So I found it was a good reception. The other vendors were just great, and it was the reception that we found from the local mycophiles, the people that were like, oh my God, I've never seen mushrooms like this. For the first few months, all we've done is the first few months, man, I tell you, it probably took about 10 minutes to make a pitch on how to cook lion's mane before someone bought it. If I had $1 for everyone that walked by and like stared 3 times at the lion's mane, if you go to our Instagram page, that's the one I've tried to put energy into right now. You'll see some of our setups at the market where we bring fruiting body bags. So we'll bring fruit bags down to the stands. And what I found is it's really important to have information for my customers. How do you cook it? How do you prepare it? Because so many people have never seen mushrooms like this, as well as we're right beside a guy that's selling mushroom coffee and mushroom tea. And he's selling like the functional mushrooms like reishi, cordyceps, all sorts of turkey tail, things like that. And so we were recepted really well. I have some diehard fans already that come every rain or shine. They're there on the Saturday, and it's not a really busy market at the Fort Langley. It's not like the urban city ones, but we like it, and it was a good reception. So I've been quite enjoying it. The setups, it gets a little bit with the setup and stuff, but we kind of went out of our way with grow bags and to really set up a great display. And I'm really, I think that's just such an important part to, having success in the farmer's stand is that really a little bit of effort with, like, we have some cool crates, we prop up the grow bags, we have information handy. I even brought a cutting board and a knife to just show people how to cut lion's mane, how to cook lion's mane. And then we had some customers that started playing with it and like barbecuing it and doing all sorts of, fun stuff with it. Right. So it's a really good reception. I did find that there's a few people, and this is new to my world, is that there's a few people that broker products at farmers markets that don't have a farm. Right. So there's still quite a few people that kind of, they're just sort of standing at a table. They got some stuff, and you look at it like, oh, okay, where'd you get that? Oh, I just, they're just middlemaning things. So I know in British Columbia, they've started actually kind of making it like you own the farm. It's your labor. This is your, blood, sweat, and tears. You get priority on those tables. And so that's pretty cool that they've been doing that. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So talk us through, lion's mane. We do a lot of lion's mane here actually at our farm. It's probably our favorite mushroom to grow.
Right on.
Yeah. Have you taken that 10-minute pitch and kind of, made it a little bit more manageable, or you still typically take a long time to explain that?
Well, what we're doing is just, I'll have a piece in my hand. Right. And typically I'll just have that's why I brought my little cutting board. And so when a customer, is walking by and I just see them glance 2, 3, 4 times at the lion's mane going, what is that?
Yeah.
And, it looks like cauliflower, right? And I'll just gently bring them in. And one of the ways I've condensed it now is we're posted a sign that, like, so now on the pole at the farmer's market, there's a little, I had a really nice sign printed up with directions, how we grow and what you can do with lion's mane. And so what we're doing is I'll just sit there and I'll do a little cutting demonstration. And I like to cut it into the medallions, and a lot of people, they're like, oh, right on. And then I recommend them to websites, and it's really streamlining now. And I think the word's getting out big time. Like, we're having people now that just show up, they throw me money, grab their mushrooms, go home, and I think that's just the time it's taken over consistent sales and building relationship with the customer. But I've condensed it down quite a bit. And typically I found that when you start doing sort of a demonstration, you'll gather a crowd, no matter what you're doing. Like, if you're sitting there, when a kid walks by, I'll grab the fruiting block, and I'll have this crazy, pink oyster coming out of it. And I'll be like, check it out. And the kid's looking at it. You'll get 3 or 4 other customers that'll catch their eye and they come over. And I always end up with a little crowd at my stand when I start playing with lion's mane or playing with a fruit block. And I treated it one day, I did it like a vegan butcher shop. So I had all my fruit blocks up on the back table, and I was like, what would you like? How many pounds do you want? And I was just plucking it right off the fruit bag and weighing it and giving it to them. And so it was like just kind of that kind of gameplay with it and having fun with it. So, that's how we're getting our fan base. So now we're at a place now, buddy, where we're like, I've got more orders than I have mushrooms now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's starting to explode.
But at the beginning, there was a bit of a slog to get people interested.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's something I think for anyone starting out, you got to push past it. And I just, I think with some of my life skills, like when I worked on the downtown core of Vancouver's, opioid pandemic epidemic, if I can talk, for me, sales are easy. Like, I don't get burnt out, right? I've got this longevity. So for anyone that's new to sales or new to engaging customers, don't give up, man. It'll take some time. You give yourself a month or two. Don't get discouraged, and just keep your head up and keep talking to those customers, because what'll happen is that you're going to get the ones that love mushrooms, and they're going to find you. It's like for me with mycology, and I'm a newbie and I'm new at the whole thing, but I just didn't stop, if I can convince a heroin addict to give up heroin and go to rehab today, I think I can convince someone how to cook a mushroom. Right. So I have a serious transferable skill set. So with some people, like I've had people at the markets that have been vendors there for years, and they've come up and been like, holy, like, we're making the most money at the market right now, and we're a small market, but what's happening is I'm building that community, that fan base. And so we're going to start our first school tours as well. And this is another thing I suggest to anybody: invite the school kids, like get those kids to the farm, get the parents to the farm, bring them out, bring them into our little cool world, because we got a really cool thing going on. Right. And when, we're going to do a big workbench thing, we're going to have the kids, sit there and make a bag, come to the farm that day in a big cold frame, and there'll be benches, and they can mix up their soy husk and their hardwood. And then they can put it in a little 3-pound bag. Like, we'll give them a 3-pound bag. They can pack it down, fold the bag, put their name on it. And then I'm going to fire it up in our substrate steamers, and we'll colonize it and bring it back to the school. So giving them that sense. So I've been doing a lot of work with some of the local pack parents and stuff now that school started. So I just got a message today. There's a woman that wants to bring 6 kids here next week. And, being that we're a gourmet mushroom farm, and we don't have high CO2 buildup. We have good ventilation. Our water that comes out of here is a wash water. It's not any fecal content in it. So we got a real good thumbs up from the inspectors as well. But yeah, getting over the hump has been the hardest part. Like, we're getting to that place where we're scaling. And if anyone's ever getting into this business, if you want to make it successful, what I've learned is that I had to have cash flow, and not big cash flow. I had to have reserves. Like, I've had to borrow money to get to where we are. There's no way I could have just, grown a little bit. Or if you started on your own, I know some people have done that, and my hat's off to them, that have done like a small grow, build it. But I've got 3 kids, and, I've got a lot going on in my life. So for me, we had to scale. I got to scale it to size so I can pay my bills, right?
Yeah, yeah, because you have to sell a certain amount of mushrooms to actually get enough profit per pound to actually start making that kind of money. Yeah,
yeah. And I mean, and I'll tell you the truth, Brand, we're 1 hour from downtown Vancouver, British Columbia.
So there's massive potential.
I've got huge market, and so that's one of the things too. Like if anyone's getting into this, always look at your market. Like I said to you, I can't even. I've done some promo, and here's where my mistakes come out. Like I started promoting more than I was growing at the beginning. Because I was like, okay, well, I got to sell these things. So I'd get anxious and I go sell everything, but then they'd be like, oh, these are amazing. Do you have another 50 pounds? And I'd be like, no, so I'd be like back in the lab. So if, in hindsight, I'd tell you, Mike, I'd say in hindsight, I would just say, focus on growing surplus. And if you have surplus, don't stress selling it. Just who cares? Eat it, dry it, whatever you're doing. So I started drying a lot of lion's mane. And what's funny is I sold 2 pounds of dried lion's mane for $120 a pound the other day at the market. People and because a lot of people come by and they're like, oh, I take those for tinctures. Oh, I take those in my coffee. Oh, I take those in my natural food store. And I said, well, hey, fresh is best. And guess what? Like I've got a whole pound of it here. Oh, and they're like, oh, can I rehydrate that and put it in soup? And I'm like, you sure can. Put it in your blender and stick it in a stew, and you're going to get the nutritional value of the lion's mane. So I have a piece of paper that does print that out now. And it shows you, like, if you buy, even with like Paul Stammen's book, he's got the breakdown of all the medicinal and, food qualities, where lion's mane is known to have 20 grams of protein to 100 grams of mushroom. And that's one of the other big sellers. Like I was selling my dried stuff to an MMA fighter, not long ago, who just loves it. He takes lion's mane for post recovery after he's had his head beaten up a bit, right? So he sought it out and he likes it. So so it's kind of interesting, but yeah, man, it's getting over the hump. So for my scaling and my size, I've had to dig into some finances and pay my bills. But if I was just no kids and a small grower, it'd be easy to start up a one roomer. Get one room going, make your get a Bubba barrel, get your, just get your tools. You can even buy grain spawn for really cheap in Vancouver. Like you can just buy the grain spawn and grow them yourself. Like, so if you built a grow room, you could just go to town on it. And then as long as you had a little bit of a market, you're good to go.
Yeah. I just want to remind folks, because we're talking all things mushrooms. We did a mushroom summit. We had 30 speakers. If you go to farmsummits.com, you can go listen to all the recordings of that. So just a quick announcement on that, because I know this is getting me fired up and back about mushrooms and growing more of them. But I just want to make that I think we had I think it was like 30 plus presentations from farmers all around the world that are doing mushrooms, all different types, UK, US, I think some from Asia. So yeah, talk to us about the business side of the farm, because obviously business is the challenging side, getting that going. Share a bit about that.
Yeah, man, for sure. Okay. So like I said, being a local BC boy, having my own, like literally I lived in a jam space, like downtown Vancouver from like 16 on. And I worked at 2 restaurants, and I've always seen the hustle in restaurants and what it's like. So for me, I'll tell you, man, like I know a lot of people in the city. So I had a guy actually come all the way from Tennessee when he was up here at the farmer's market. And another gift of these farmer's markets, man, is PR. So in the business side, I don't really care how much I sell that day. I've made like this card from that guy, that connection from this person. And that's actually blossoming more. Like one acorn of knowledge can create a forest, right? And that one person I met who runs 3 major restaurants downtown. And the biggest thing this one guy told me from the States, he's like, hey man, I love what you're doing. These are brilliant, and like keep on doing it. These mushrooms are gorgeous. And he just said, get some chefs on board. And once you get some chefs involved, and it makes all the sense in the world, because a dear friend of mine, he's a maitre d' at 2 of Vancouver's finest restaurants. Now, here's the thing. I can't even walk up and talk to them yet because I don't have the volume, right? So where I found it's just managing that whole startup, I like the entrepreneur anxiety, because I went from like government employee right to bam, I've got a mushroom farm. You know what I mean? Like people look at me like, what the hell are you doing anyways? Like they had going from addictions clinical counselor to tugboats to like, oh, I'm going to start a mushroom farm. People are just like, you are random, So the beauty of it is that I love the chef things, and I love talking to people, and I love making new customers. I'll tell you, I did a cold sale. I was doing a beta testing mushroom farm for this other company. They didn't get into it though. They didn't want to put more money into infrastructure and a walk-in freezer and stuff. So they put some money in. They got some racks. They made some grow rooms, but they didn't like the markup on the bags, and they didn't want to, So it's kind of an interesting deal. But I remember we had about, I don't know, we must have 40 pounds of beautiful mother of pearl, and the rooms were kind of warmer and a little more CO2 buildup. So they stretched really nice. You know what I mean? When you see your mushrooms stretching. So I had these gorgeous mother of pearls I put them in a bucket, and I walked into the pub 2 feet away from the indoor commercial grow, like where the warehouse was, where they were growing mushrooms. And I met the owner right there and the staff, and next thing you know, the next day I was in there showing their chef how to cook an oyster mushroom burger with our mushrooms, right? And so they're our first customer, and they're going to be our customer till forever. Like it's one of those customers. Like, so I just cold sold them. I walked into a restaurant with the mushrooms and said, "Hi, here, check them out." And the chef, at first the owners like saw the price, $12 a pound. They're like, "Ooh, wow, what?" And then they'll show me the GMO and the Franken mushrooms, right? They'll show me the Franken mushrooms, and they'll be like, "Well, we get these for $8 a medley, right?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I know where that came from. I know where that came from. I know where that came from." And the growth hormones that they're using in the commercial mushrooms, I want nothing to do with it, right? That's really what they're doing. And so I showed the chef ours that were like, you know what I mean, bro? It's like that little pop, that crunch, and the texture. And these are like wild cultures from BC. They sporulate, they're just a natural mushroom. And the chef's like, "No, I'm keeping these."
Yeah.
He's like, "These are mine. You can leave these here." And the owner's like, "Oh, okay." And I just talked to the same owner the other day. He's got 3 Italian restaurants, and they put our mushrooms on as an appetizer dish, as a plant-based, right? And so, Chef Adam at Nello's in British Columbia, that guy, I mean, just awesome guy, young chef, but he knows his quality. And that's the thing, is that what I would tell anybody getting into this market, we're selling value. We're not selling, we're selling value. Like it takes a lot to make these mushrooms. It's hardwood. It's hardwood substrate. Our cost is not dirt cheap, and I don't know if you know this, but Vancouver, BC, like the Fraser Valley here, we have over 100 commercial mushroom farms here. We're like the mushroom cradle, and everywhere you go right now, you could throw a stick and hit a mushroom farm in Fraser Valley, right? But those guys really don't care about us. They're cool. They're like, we don't care about yellow oysters. They're growing buttons and creminis, and they're doing the the portobello. And they're also on a side note, we got our water inspection as soon as the city of Langley saw mushroom farm. They're like, "Oh, and this is something else for startups too, man, is the business models. Like we had to make sure that we had cash flow in the bank. We had to make sure we had all of our ducks in order, because as soon as the city saw a mushroom farm, doesn't matter what kind of mushroom farm, they're at your door like, "We need to test your water." Right. So right away they wanted to test our wastewater, because just down the street from us is where there was, I think 3 staff died at a mushroom farm, because the mushroom farm was built long ago, and these guys have been cowboy dumping all their wastewater that are using the manure substrates out here in BC. So the inspector and the engineer that came to see us, they loved us, man. They're like, "Nah, your wash water, whatever, you can just pull it. Our water just goes out into the field, no big deal, right?" Or it goes back into the, we're not contaminating the earth or the soil. All these other commercial mushroom farms, I won't name any, obviously, but all these big commercial mushroom farms, they're paying their monthly fines and just continuing on. They're not even cleaning up their environment, right? So the city of Langley is getting really upset with them, and they're not gonna, they got to invest a ton of money into infrastructure to capture the wastewater, so they don't destroy all the streams around them, because that's what's happening, is they're finding major fecal content in the local streams and ditches. So it's just it's just a bad rap for mushrooms, and it's something that most people don't say, but they've, like I said, they've been cowboying it all for a long time. No one's even kind of come down on it. So so it's another pro of being this smaller farm to table thing. Like and I just love that fact that we're doing something that's, we're not, if we had the wastewater, we'd have to capture it. And I hope those businesses do that, because it's about accountability and responsibility. And, it's something else that we're grateful as a business that we don't have to face. And so, with the other part of it is like, we've got our bookkeeper setting up and, just counting our ducks as we go. Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it goes. And I think if someone was to go like buy a bunch of fruit bags off me today, go home and fruit them out and sell it at a premium price to neighbors, restaurants, all that stuff, you could make a bit of money every week. Like you really could. If you can grow 50 pounds and your cost is, $5 a pound Canadian from us, for doing all the fruit blocks, then, you can go ahead and retail that at 17. Right. So there's a good markup for it. And there's one gentleman that keeps coming to the mushroom farm, at the farm stand, and he's kicking tires and he's interested. And so there's another guy out here in Vancouver who's growing lion's mane specifically. And he's trying to hit the big marks. Like he got a huge farm going. He's got some doctors on board, and they're doing a whole bunch of functional mushroom stuff like turkey tail and lion's mane. And his model is, he wants to be a juggernaut. Like he wants to literally, the food brokers want 1,000 pounds from him a week of lion's mane, and it's all going to a pharmaceutical company.
Yes.
For supplements. And that's a huge model. I mean, but he's got probably a 250,000, I'd say 500,000 now invested.
Wow.
So it's like we're Vancouver's like for some reason I didn't know about this, but now I do. I've had the crash course in the model in the business industry around the mushroom. But some of these guys are going big, and obviously we had you guys are all familiar. I don't know if you listeners know, like in Vancouver we had the big mushroom boom again. Like everyone thought psilocybin was going to be like the next big cash cow. So for the last 2 years, there's been all these farms popping up with mushroom farms. All clandestine, of course. I couldn't even buy a laminar flow hood, man. It was impossible. But now that the market crashed on psilocybin, I've got all the gear. I could pennies on the pound, pardon my language, but pennies on the pound. I looked at an autoclave this guy bought that's literally been brought up from the States, and you could park a car in it. I make a commercial clave, man, and like a 40 something horsepower boiler. Like this, We're talking juggernaut. You'd put this thing inside like a 30,000 square foot mushroom farm, like you want to do 2,000 bags of grain at once. Well, I got your machine, right? And so he wanted to sell it, and I looked at him like, man, maybe in 5 years. I hope, Mike. I don't know. But it's just crazy now. You can find equipment everywhere, and there's all these people that went into the big shroom boom, and I've had people approach me about it, like, when you tell people you're going mushrooms, everyone's like, oh, psilocybin. I'm like, no, just straight up lion's mane and good, delicious food, right? So it's it's fun to just stick to the plan, right? And that's our business model is just stay true to the plan. I want to see little kids' faces when they come through on a farm tour. I'm a family guy. I got 3 boys. And that's just what I love to do. And my dream is to just be self-employed growing mushrooms. If I can do that, man, I will die happy. That's it. Yeah.
So one of the pictures I see on your page is, it looks like grilled lion's mane. Is that what I'm looking at?
Yes, you are. That is a customer. It's a Maui. It's like a Maui rib marinade of lion's mane. Yes. Yeah.
Very cool.
So like that's kind of the fun we've been having for sure. And those are customers' foods. Like another thing I always encourage is if anyone, like my customers send me pictures and it goes up on my Facebook. Right. And that's just, I love that stuff, the interaction. But the thing is too, is that I've been really so busy trying to balance growing mushrooms, doing the business side and making sales that I've diluted myself a little bit, man. You know what I mean? And so the website is still pretty beta. The Facebook page just gets updated a little bit, the Instagram a little bit. So what we've done is my partner, Tim, came on board, and that was it. Like if you guys are scaling, or anyone that wants to scale out there, man, if you get a partner, make it a working partner. I tried to do one with money where they just wanted me to build the grow, and then do that kind of thing. And I was like, no, you need staff, man. Like farming, that's why the psilocybin industry like took a big crap, because for one, everyone did it, and then everybody had like to hire staff, and they're like, oh, what do you mean you have to hire staff? So, it's like,
Yeah.
that's just it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Right? Like, so we've had some chuckles about that out here in Vancouver a little bit, me and some other growers, but I found a good team, because what I've learned is I work in my business, but I actually want to be working on my business, right? So
yes.
my role now, man, is shifting into like, I'm on top of the cultures. I'm a lab rat. I found that I really like lab. I like doing my cultures. I like doing the grains, all that kind of stuff. I'll do bags all day if I have to. I'll colonize bags, but my partner Tim, he's doing the tech. Now, my buddy Tim, like I've known for like 25 years. He's got a roofing company. He's brilliant with numbers. So when he was watching me struggle, I was actually hiring him to like cover up a piece of the old farm out, for working space outside. And he came in, and I started talking to him, and he was watching me struggle and break equipment and go through my growing pains. And my first partner bailed out, and he had too much going on in his life, and he couldn't commit to the time. And that's the whole thing. It's like, whether I'm making a sub sandwich or, selling cars, I got to put the time into the business 100%. Right. And so having a partner, Tim, come on board, he's doing tech. So he's a good builder. He's watching the farm, like he's putting in the humidification systems. We had a high pressure system. Then we switched back to the atomizer plates. So we've been playing around with it and getting all of our stuff done. But my job now is phone calls. I've been dealing with the guy installing the fridge. I've been dealing with the landlord, the lease, all that kind of stuff. So we sort of divided and conquered on our roles in the business. And we talk about that really clearly, what our roles are. He doesn't come in and do lab work, because, he's got to put all of his energy into something else. Right. And so, if anyone's starting up, the minute you want to expand, you're going to need staff. You're just going to have to. And that's where I like the idea of like profit sharing and crop sharing. And I'm hoping pretty soon that I have a little mycology. Like I'm going over to the local botany program at the University of Fraser Valley pretty soon. Like I want to get over there and post an ad for anyone that's in the mycology courses there, and I think that's a great place to start finding it, people to work on your farm or work on my farm. If I can find a kid that wants to go in there and, he's taking his course and he wants lab time and he wants to get involved like that, I'll make that kid rich, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like I want to pay people well. I don't know, I can't remember the name, but for business models, when I was doing my research in farming, I came across this guy that had when I was looking at micro greens, there's a guy in the States, and he had 4 employees, and they're all close friends of his. He was pulling in 450,000 US gross revenue on a microgreens business. And he said his secret is that he did the admin, the business, and ran that model, like the website and all that sort of stuff. But then he had 3 really close friends that he pays very well, splits the profit, and they're a successful business, right? And that's where I think as a company, we want employees that are like dedicated, paid very well. And there'll be those people that just show up and like, they do that extra bit of work for the farm. They do that extra bit of work to get, just to finish that order of 50 grow bags or whatever it needs, right? Because I can't do, the local fast food employee thing. I just can't do it, right? We've had some young bucks come out and younger people come out, and I had a couple of people come out that were just looking for a couple of bucks. And it's okay, but I just found that they're more work than they were to putting it. Like you're training people constantly you're always training somebody, as opposed to like, I'm going to pay a bit more cash out of my pocket because that's going to put in more revenue to our business at the end of the day. Right. Yeah. And yeah, I'm paying him more money, but he's going to make me more money at the end of the day. Right. So that's kind of where we're going with it.
It's quality over quantity, but it's also getting people that are invested in the business versus someone that just goes home at the end of the day. And, that's frankly, we've got some great team, but we are looking at the fact that we were looking for a head farmer or a head grower. And, if anyone's looking at that, we are actually hiring for that right now.
There you go. Plug your business.
Yes. Yeah.
Where are you located, Mike? Where are you guys?
Yeah, we're in Southwest Ohio.
Nice.
So, I mean, we have 1 million people within 45 minutes of us. And again, I'm sure there's someone out there, even locally, we probably could find. But again, being and I will admit right up front that I'm not easy to work for. So, yeah, the team tells me that, and I admit that. But I think the right person, we're definitely willing to give equity if they are willing to, if they are willing to come on and literally do the production side of this business and free me up to really do the marketing and management.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But it's because, we're on our business is on a pretty fast trajectory, and to succeed, go where we want to go. We just need more people who are willing to invest a couple of years of their lives. And again, we have great people working for us, but the business isn't their sole thing. They've got kids, they got families, they've got other lives. And, we're the ones that are, 365, 24/7 invested in the business. So again, if you come at that level of involvement, and again, I'm not looking for that with the person we're looking to hire, but, I guess what I'm saying is we're looking for someone who's willing to invest for a while, and really, take that level of ownership, that next level of ownership. Like, okay, you know what? We didn't quite get stuff done today, so I'm going to stay for a couple more hours, or, I'm going to be there on a Sunday afternoon if we know we've got to do something. So, and again, with our current team, we have fabulous team. But there is that other level of once you become, let's say, an equity owner, or you become a partial, when you're invested in the business, there's that other level of involvement you start to take, or you should take.
Yeah, that's right. Totally. I mean, you're nailing it there with what we got to do, and getting people involved in what we're doing, because we're actually, one of the things I want to plug out for our business as well is, if anyone's interested, we're just acquiring a gorgeous farmhouse that I'm going to completely Airbnb out in the next month, right on, MYCA Farms property. So you can come here. I'll do the same I was going to do sort of the same, training that Brian Callow did with what the fungus up in Summerland, but we're 40 minutes from downtown Vancouver. So if someone comes up from the States, they're in Vancouver, like you can, and then there's Fort Langley, like super historical place. We're going to have electric bikes, and then you can either A, sign up for the mycology course, or B, just stay at our Airbnb and I want to get personal farm to table chefs there, like all kinds of cool stuff. And that's the best part, I think, about this community, man, is Mike, you can monetize every part of your business. I can literally get into cultures and selling cultures all day, or I could get into selling grow bags all day, or I could get in, you know what I mean? It just never ends, and it's finding the right time, like you said. And I hear you. You want to hire that manager. If you can find that manager, that's kind of what we're sniping for too, right? Because a lot of my clinical background as well falls into what we're doing, because I worked with first responders and nurses, and I've seen the burnout, man, in the healthcare system. I mean, you guys in the States know just the same thing, and the fentanyl and the opioid crisis and all the crap that's happening in our society. And I'm actually gearing up this house so I could take someone who, like an ambulance driver or a nurse or a physician, whatever, someone who's experiencing the heavy burnout of witnessing so much death. They could come stay at our farm and just, unwind, man. Like, we're going to have a healing space. Like, we're going to have sound baths, a yoga studio. Like, we're going to make it like a real holistic retreat. And part of that main part of the medicine is what you're putting in your body. What kind of food are you eating? I've been a junkie, man. Like, I've been a heroin addict. I've been a crack cocaine addict, in 1999, like 95 to 99, man, it was brutal. I've had the worst addictions ever. And what helps me now, food is my medicine, by far. That, and I've actually done, I worked alongside Gabor Mate down in the downtown east side, like up in, the Surrey's east side. And we had clients that were going to do his ayahuasca retreats and coming back after having like a major spiritual experience and helping reset their nervous system. But the next step to that is integration in food, right? So to have someone come and stay at our Airbnb and do like an exclusive, and we outsource the counseling and the clinical counseling part, so they can do therapy here, rest. And if they want to learn some mycology, cool, come work a couple of days at the farm, come check it out. But I'm trying to encompass all of my life experiences into this business. And I think anyone else that gets into farming, like you can do all sorts of stuff, man. I don't know what your property is or what you got. But I mean, if you have property, you can do all kinds of training classes, fun stuff, cooking courses, you name it. If you want to do it, you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think I love about, being an entrepreneur and getting into farming. It's hard ass work, man. There is no stopping. You can't candy coat it. I mean, I talked to What the Fungus this year, and I know Brian, he's out there, man, and he's making 1,000 bags himself some days, right? And that's just the way it goes. It's just the way it goes, and can you do it, right? So
yeah.
Nelson carrot, Sadakoy melon, buffalo tomatoes, Megatron leek. What do all these varieties have in common? Well, they're all dinosaurs, or varieties that were dropped by the trade for one reason or another. So what do smart growers do? Well, if they can, they buy a bunch of seed before it goes out of stock and freeze it while they scramble to find new varieties that are going to work better. But the problem is that eventually seed vitality goes down and the seed is no longer good. Is there anything you can do to revive the seeds? Well, introducing Ultra, an organic seed treatment, or as I like to say, a seed defibrillator. To back up a bit, we were able to get 20 kernels of what we now call Gill's Select, a rare Indian corn variety from Gill's Sweet Corn Farm in the Hudson Valley. We grew it out, distributed it to a number of farmers, and then life happened. About a decade later, I found the seed at the bottom of our freezer, and we took most of the seeds and tried to germinate them in a greenhouse. Only a few came up. Not enough to have good genetic diversity. Last year, with only a few handfuls left and a Hail Mary attempt, I soaked them with Ultra for 24 hours, then struck them into some trays and popped them into our germ chamber. 72 hours later, we started seeing shoots, and this year, even with an 8-week drought, we had a wonderful yield of corn. We sold some and kept back most of it for future seed stock. I'm confident that we wouldn't have been able to continue this lost variety without Ultra. Here's the best news yet. AgriGrow has agreed to offer a 10% discount to all Thriving Farmer listeners. Simply use the coupon code THRIVE when you check out. Again, that is THRIVE for a 10% off discount on your first order. Go to smallfarm.solutions for more information.
What would you say to that person who's just getting started?
Oh man, someone who's just getting started, what I would say, don't quit, man. If you love mushrooms or you love growing or you're into making, the best carrots on the planet, man, we need you. I need you, right? Don't quit. It's from the heart. And that's the best part about all this, is this shit's from the heart. This is my passion, and it's a chance for me to express myself into this world. And I'm at next level stuff with it, man. I see these farmers that I know, and this one guy, he's got a totally, he's got the lease on this land, and it's all these berry bushes, and he just lets the grass grow, and he just lets everything Mother Nature do itself. It's like watching that, some of those farm movies, and but I'm meeting these people heart and soul, and he's foraging, he's out there, and he's making his niche because he believes in the good food he's doing. So, just starting out, if you're really passionate, you'll be okay. Well, you'll be rocking. I think that the thing about what separates our farmers and what I've learned, because I've always had this thing in the back of my mind about it, is it's about just putting the heart into it. So I would just say, if you're brand new starting out, put your heart into this and don't be afraid to make mistakes, man. You know what I mean? Don't get discouraged when some shit dies on you, or I've thrown out 50 bags of green grain, and I'm yeah, all right, back to the drawing board, cleaning my lab more. And my first farm I paid $500 a month, and it was dirty as hell. I had to clean it up and gut it. And they used to have unlicensed chicken fights apparently in the old farm. We went into the barn. I'm there's a stage, and I'm what the hell's on the walls? And I was did you guys have a band in here? And I guess the owner was no, we had to kick these guys out. They're having illegal cockfights.
Man.
Yeah. So this stuff you come across just cracks me up, right? I'm just okay. So we literally had to gut this barn out. It was disgusting, and it was a few days, a couple months. And I would always just tell someone that what I've learned from some of my mentors and what I've heard over and over again in books that I've read is the tortoise wins the race, man. The tortoise and the hare. If you can do what the tortoise does and take your time and enjoy the journey, then you'll be okay. No matter what business you start, farming or whatever. But yeah, if you're just getting out farming, have fun and Yeah, I mean, if you can make the leap to a full-time thing, it's not easy. And I've listened to some stories, and I've heard other farmers really put it out there, man. Like you know, like I'm 6 months out of this, and we're just starting to see some revenue, you know, and that's godsend. But I get up every day and I show up, man. There's no days off, you know, not right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I mean, there's always stages to that business. And that's one of the things we teach in our small farm university is that there's 5 distinct stages. You got that dreamer stage, which it sounds like you went through when you're just trying to figure it out. You got that beginner stage, where you're going through things, and you've got that traction stage, which is where I think you're probably in right now, where it's working, it's happening. You're still, you know, clawing for every dollar there, but it sounds like you've got the marketing side going, and now you're at that scaling aspect now to just do it. Then you've got that thrive stage, which we'll get to, where everything just like works, get the team in place, the people in place. And then finally, you're going to get yourself into that mentor stage, we feel like, which is, to me, is the best stage to be in, where you can share that knowledge with other people.
I'm just checking out your site right here with the thriving. I think I signed up for the thriving market. I think I signed up for this thriving farmer. That's how I found you, dude. And it's funny because I was so freaking busy. I've been so busy building and getting this done. Like, because the Trad Cotter one, I love that guy. You know, his book's great. I love his book, you know, and like some of the legends are on here for sure that really inspired me along the way. And are you guys going to do that mushroom festival that next year? Like, I wanted to go, but I couldn't make it this year because I've been so busy. But I guess it's in August. There's a mushroom festival in Colorado or something.
We haven't. Now, there's also a mushroom festival in Pennsylvania.
Okay, maybe that was it.
That William Padilla Brown puts on, which sounds amazing. They go foraging in the woods. Yeah.
Well, Mike from Southwest Mushroom Farms was supposed to be there. That's why I was kind of like, we all joke and call him the Rob Ross of mushrooms, right?
Yeah, that guy, his video quality is incredible. I've really been impressed with what he puts out. Yeah, absolutely.
I love it, man. No, I was sitting there. Even my buddy that owns this, I have a good friend of mine owns a big treatment center here, and he's been a big inspiration, man. Like, you know, like the guy opened up a recovery house that's now one of the biggest ones. It's called the Last Door Recovery Society, and it's like Vancouver's premier, you know, drug addictions rehab. And it's all from heart, man. Like he, you know, when he talks about his stories, like I met him when I got out of jail 25 years ago and stayed at the halfway house, right? And I'm like, you know, these crazy, scary biker dudes, and I'm scared shitless, like 26 years old, going, oh my God. But, you know, they have this huge, he's built a business on saving lives and doing the best thing he could. And he helped save my life. And, you know, there's a farm they have called Keystone Farms in Mission. And it's just gorgeous, dude. They literally, like, you know, the society's just exploded. But he said there's those 10 years of growing pains, 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears. He said he didn't take a paycheck for 3 years. And now I know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I know it. I totally know what he's talking about. I haven't taken a paycheck yet at all. And everything's back into this business. But, you know, when I see those guys that have made it, and I'm, you know, listening to you, and thanks for having me on the podcast 100%, man. Like, I'm really new to the whole community. So I'm really honored that you got me on here. And, you know, but I've pushed through a lot, and I've been so busy. The idea of, like, one thing for me is, like, the social media thing has just had to be a back burner. You know, I tried it. I had no time for it. And I've been so busy because I'm a single dad, 3 kids too, man. Like, when I'm not at the farm, I got my boys, you know, I'm off to hockey. Yeah, right. We're Canadian hockey. Well, you Americans too love hockey, but you know, up here, it's like football.
Yeah. Well, actually, I would say I'm probably going to lose listeners over this, but I'd much rather go to a hockey game than a football game.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Well, you know, like, the only thing about football, I love it. I love the enterprise. I love the whole thing. I am a Seahawks fan because I'm from Vancouver, BC. Sorry, listeners, if you're, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, man, I'll tell you, the stop and start, like, I have ADD, right? So when they stop every play, I'm like, oh, I'm off to the bathroom or something, or I got to go, you know? But that's funny. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just, like I said, I'm coming out in the community, and we're really just starting to build our branding. And the cool thing, like I said, is, you know, sticking true to it. You know, if you build it, they will come. But no, like, to go back to my friend David there, who built this big business, I showed him, Southwest Mushrooms video, and he's like, wow, you know, he's like, wow, what production, like, that guy knows what he's doing. And then he told me, don't give up. You know, he's like, I had a moment. No, seriously, man, like the boiler broke, my partner quit, broke a bunch of gear, flipped out. And I'm sitting there just like, I want to quit. I'm done. You know, and that was about, I'd say that last Christmas when the big freeze hit Vancouver and it broke all the pipes on this boiler. And my partner was supposed to winterize it. And, you know, one of the things that's hardest about doing a setup and a beginning is taking responsibility, right? And I can only do so much at the same time, like winterizing your equipment. Always think about 3 months ahead when you're building stuff, you know, like right now, the new farm, the contractors here, we're sealing up the building. I got the furnace getting installed today. Right. Because by the time November comes, you know, as well as I do, man, when that winter comes, you're like, bro.
That is key. We now on the farm have we call it the yearly calendar. We actually plan, there's like a 5-step planning process we go through on the farm. But we have what we call the yearly plan, which is literally broken up into quarters, but it's literally the entire year. And we have listed for every single month, kind of like the key tasks. And winterization is something that we do put on there because it is so important. I have screwed up. Well, I mean, it sucks to do a boiler. The worst part, actually, I think it sucks more to have to dig up the same frost rehydrant 4 times in a row because you forgot 4 times in a row to winterize it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That boiler sounds far more expensive, but I probably expended a lot more calories digging that thing up.
Oh God. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
What is your favorite tool on the farm?
My favorite tool on the farm. Oh man. Well, it's a tough one, you know. I think our favorite is the bagger we got. We got how we mix our substrate. Like we are shaved. Okay, so what we did with our farm, like I haven't done any real videos. I did a couple on YouTube. They're terrible. I can't stand them, but they're there. So if any listeners want to check out MYCA Farms on YouTube, there's me doing a grow bag demo. And then I guess that my video production guy is kind of cool. They're great, but I don't like looking at myself on camera at all. Like I haven't even really watched the videos. But one of my favorite tools is we bought a bagger from some pot growers, and what it does is it literally has a hopper and a footstool. So you throw in your sub, right, and it just sits there and mixes it with the paddles. But then you step your foot down on the trigger, and then it spits it out a hopper at the top. It's an amazing bag machine. It was actually designed to use coco coir to do cannabis pots, and it's a great mixer. Amazing mixer, and that's probably the best piece of equipment we've done. Like one guy can make and prep up at least 1,000 bags in a day easily if he's on it, right? Yeah. And it's, you know, we do the four bags of Canawick to 1 bag of the soy husk, 3 and 3. Sorry, the soy meal is the 1 bag of soy meal, the 4 bags of the Canawick. But we do a 50-50 masters mix, and it actually adds the water by itself, and it does the whole 9 yards. It's automated. So that's probably my favorite piece. Because I was sitting there doing the scoop and the fold, right? And, when Tim came on, he found this thing. I was like, wow, where'd you find it? We paid crazy money for it. It was not cheap. It was like I think it was 15 grand at the beginning. But you know what, man? Like when you see this thing in action and how many bags it can make for you, it's going to pay for itself right away, right? Because what we've done and what I would suggest with anybody is if you can and you have the funds, like I've dug into some of my own equity to do this, and we've bought rolling racks. We've got, we've kind of Cadillac this place. So that way, when a bag leaves here on the rack, it stays on the rack till it's finished. And that's from watching like Mossy Creek and, some of your educational stuff. Like we're very much, I ordered a bunch of stuff from Mossy Creek not long ago. I'm trying out his strains, really enjoyed it. I think Brian Callow, shout out to What the Fungus for sure. They've got great, like Brian's got some really great cultures. Stays up on it. I even got a lion's mane from Southwest Mushroom Farms, and then I got 2 more coming in from North Spore. And I love sharing cultures with everybody. So that's another favorite part with me. It's just the unity with growers. Like I don't feel any, you know what I mean? Like we're all in business together, and there's more than enough gourmet mushrooms and consumers for it, especially in Vancouver, right? Like we've got, if you're familiar with Vancouver, we have Richmond, which is now 55% pretty much brand new Asians. And so mushrooms here, like you go to the average like T&T supermarket, which is a Chinese supermarket, you'll see about 8 different mushroom varieties there, as opposed to like the traditional safe way, or, like, I guess you guys would talk about like Loblaws or something, and you'd have maybe 3 mushroom selections. So I find that people are getting more educated as they're going. But in Vancouver, we have a whole, like, we're to China and Southeast Asia, we're like New York to the Irish and the Scottish and the English, right? And the French. So Vancouver's population is 50% Asian now. And it's a great culture. I love it. Like, I live here, man. You can go to like traditional Chinese to like authentic East Indian. Like, I love our multicultural province, man. It's pretty crazy. Our city's crazy. So as far as market goes, like right now, I swear, if I could get fresh lion's mane from you, I would broker it and sell it today. Like,
Yes.
like, how many pounds can you send me right now, Mike? Because I've got it sold. Yeah, like straight up.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually think, this is interesting. I actually think lion's mane's an easier mushroom to grow, I mean, at least for me, than some of the oysters.
Right. Okay. Right.
We just, and I don't know, in our grow room, it just seems like it's more consistent. I mean, we put them in and we by clockwork. It's not as uniform, and when they come off, like typically some of them will come a little bit later than others. The fruitos uniformly, but just for the yield, poundage we get off them, I just feel like we get. That's just for us, and I don't know why it is. Maybe that's different about our setup or the strain we're using, but it just seems a lot more consistent.
Cool, man. Well, what culture are you getting? What are you using down there?
So actually, we work with the American Mushroom and Spice Company out of Indiana for our bags. So we don't do any bag production. So it's just whatever he's using. So
man, like crazy. Like we can't find it. I haven't found anyone that does like any major corps that are doing big grain for lion's mane. Like, I haven't found one yet. There's one guy that wants me to try his bag, so I'm gonna go with that. From Monarch Mushrooms, Ryan. But yeah, man, that's cool. That's great. Yeah, because that would be a great something we're actually considering. My partner Tim and I are looking into getting our pre-made grain spawn from someone, right? Yeah, because that just takes out one more component, right? Like, I've got the market now, I've established some sales. So how can we make this a little bit more effective for us and put me working on the business as opposed to into it, right? And that's definitely something we're considering too. But I don't think I can ship. I don't think I can get fresh grain spawn shipped from the States.
I'm not sure. There's a lot of rules and regs. We've actually done some research as we're trying to look at shipping product across borders and how challenging it is. But
right.
Yeah, it's a crapshoot sometimes, I think, to kind of figure out what can go and what can't, and sometimes I've seen people ship stuff and just not label it correctly, and there's all sorts of about that. But I think it's a numbers game at that point. I did get some seeds from Europe, and I didn't get some seeds from Europe. I got an empty package from the border saying, "Hey, there were seeds in here. We threw them away and we sent you the package."
Oh my God. Yeah.
So anyway, it's interesting.
Well, you want to hear something funny too? Okay, so this is what blew me away, because in Vancouver we have a direct pulse to Asian if you've ever heard of Satchrise Industries, like some of the biggest South Pacific Asian mushroom farms on the planet, right? So we were looking on Alibaba to buy some equipment. So Tim was doing that, and then all of a sudden he had a little small pack by air from China Post show up and it says yellow spores. That's all it says, yellow spores.
Okay.
And so we got spores by air, and he didn't even order them. Like, literally shopping on their website, we ended up with yellow. I haven't even opened the package yet. I don't know if I want to, bro.
Yeah, maybe it may be like, it might be.
I saved it. And I'm like, it's literally Air China, untracked, and it's yellow. It says in here, yellow spore.
Yeah.
And it was sent to his house.
Yeah, I might microwave that and then turn it into the authorities.
Just talking about shipping and stuff is kind of funny. Eh? That's just. I got cultures across. Like, so Mossy Creek, I got their 17 pack of like the Ritter, the Turtle Song, like all their strains and their lines, man. I got it up into Canada, no problem. Like, the culture seemed to get through. And the agar plate, preferably I like to buy plates, right? I always like plates. That's what I like. But so it's kind of cool. Like, trying everyone's cultures, and I'm having some fun with the Mossy Creek oysters. We're doing pretty good. Like our oysters are coming out huge.
That's awesome.
And and then we have a BC wild strain. I definitely, if you want one, I'll send you a plate. It's called the Mother of Pearl. And
you mentioned that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So Mother of Pearl is a beautiful white BC wild oyster. It came from Summerland. It was actually, and Brian Callow had it. Yep. And so it's been going around, and I know Mossy Creek has a Mother of Pearl as well, but this culture I have is just gorgeous, and it comes out huge, and they're one of my most aggressive ones. So I'm going to sporulate it and bring it back to spore this year, and I'm going to start with a fresh culture, and just keep it in the family, man. I love it. And our chefs that's the one that Nello's restaurant puts on their showcase, vegetarian mushroom appetizer, right? So very cool. So that's cool. Yeah, man. Yeah, well, so it's been, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast today, Brian.
Thank you.
So much fun to have you here. You talk about the startup phase, where you are right now, kind of like the challenges and the successes along the way. And it's really cool to hear your story too, coming from the background of addiction and moving forward. A final question. What was it? When do you feel like was the time that you said, I'm done with this and I want to, take my life in a different direction?
Oh, buddy, that's when I was in handcuffs sitting in prison.
Okay.
I was like, I wasn't arrested, Mike. I wasn't arrested. I was rescued, right?
Yeah.
Like I got in, in the 90s were crazy for me, man. Like I had booze cans and after hours, and I had like 8 grow shows going on in downtown, in Vancouver, and running around like a lunatic, dude. And I picked up a crazy habit with cocaine and heroin, and I just my first apartment was literally downtown Skids. Like I grew up working in bars and cafes and partying in art galleries. I was a city kid in 5 punk bands kind of thing, and addiction was just, the drugs just made sense at that point. Right? Like look at how you're living. But I changed my life when I was around 26, and I was doing the revolving door in prison, and I could not shake it. Like quitting opiates, man, for me was like stop breathing. You just couldn't do it, and it was the hardest thing I ever faced. And I'll never forget, my last hit was like 99, and this cop's like, I was loading up the pipe and stuff, and this cop walked up, and I just said, I said, hey man, I got warrants. Can you just take me away? I literally was like, I want to go to jail now. I'm not going to give you my fake ID, and I just want to go to jail, part of my language, but I just want to go to jail. And so they locked me in, and I just surrendered, dude. And after that, it was all about who I put in my life, right? Like for anyone struggling with addictions, I would happily talk to them, because that's what I do. And I still volunteer, and I love volunteering, with people in recovery. And, Vancouver, BC's got one of the biggest recovery days in North America. There's like 6,000 people. This year we had Cheap Trick Play, it was Tom Cochran. And then we had like Snotty Nose Red Kids. And next year we're going to actually be doing a vendor booth there with our mushrooms and selling mushroom burgers. So I want to be part of that community. But for me to know I was done, man, I had to literally be like, it was intervention. And then I made the right choice, because there are some great people that stepped up and volunteered in my life that I hold dear to my heart to this day, forever grateful. Right. And so, yeah, it's been a long journey, man. And working in addictions, I never thought I'd be a mushroom farmer.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I was working at, for the government job, and, I had my degree, and I was working my ass off, and then, I'm just going to grow mushrooms. Why not? So here I am. Next venture. So that's it, man.
Well, Brian, again, thank you so much for coming on today. Can't wait to share this with our audience, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much, Mike. And I'm glad to meet you, man. I'm really glad to meet you, and I look forward to, collaborating or anything you need, man. Like, let me know, and I'll be definitely checking out and promoting these courses now. I getting involved in it. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
This episode is sponsored by Rimmel Greenhouse Systems, makers of quality greenhouse structures. Whether you're just getting started or buying your 10th tunnel, Rimmel has a structure to fit your needs. I've purchased and grown in Rimmel houses and would recommend them to everyone. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.